show of hands, do you identify as a developer or have been a developer in the past? Put your hand up. Okay. So do you think you're going to lose your job in 5 years? No. Good. So this was a genuine question. When I was working at Cinch, when ChatGPT came out, everyone was asking, what's this mean about our jobs, and how do we need to pivot? Is that kind of duality of fear and excitement that everyone has, and because there's this step change in technology, perceived step change. So that's definitely there. So the question is, how is software engineering going to evolve? I don't know if I'm going to get the microphone back, so I'm going to say my opinion. There's definitely an over-hype on the capabilities of ChatGPT. It's definitely an amazing, already, even before ChatGPT, things like GitHub Copilot is an amazing co-pilot to writing code. It can be an amazing pair programmer. So, as with everything, I think in the software engineering world, you need to be a good learner, and you need to adapt, and that's always been the skills of software engineers. I'm not here to protect the software engineers, but I don't see a world where the LLMs write code and they deploy it, they commit it, they deploy it, and then there's software in the wild, or anytime soon at least. So I see it as an assistive technology, but the big question is who owns the code. So if ChatGPT suggests a solution, or if it suggests, or Copilot suggests a solution, who's the author of that code? Who commits that? Then who checks the quality? Who's the owner of the quality? Who observes the systems? Who supports the systems? And all those questions are there. So we might become glorified QAs or glorified architects. So architects actually evolve yet again to something different. So I think there's a lot of things to think about, but ultimately, the more I was thinking about this a lot and talking to a lot of people. If you're a company and you're scared of ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot, the first thing to do is to give everyone access to these things. Obviously, take security into consideration. The second thing is do what you always did and try to build a learning organization. We don't know the answers. I don't know if anyone knows the answers well. So try and create an environment where everyone can learn quickly and don't put barriers. I was in a situation recently where I suggested to give access to all developers, and the answer was, what's the return on investment? And my answer was, well, okay, you can hire one software engineer, or you can give 100 software engineers access to this amazing assistive technology. It's your choice. That's my thinking. On to the next.
So I think your last point there was quite interesting. That's where the mic goes. So to the point of us losing his jobs, and you could have one engineer, or you could give this tool to a load of engineers, and I think it's called Jevons paradox or something. Maybe don't quote me on that. But essentially, there was a proposal way back when coal power was used, and the Navy ran on steam. And essentially, the paradox is, people can do 100 times more now. So you only need one person, but in actuality you often find that people, you have more of that resource, so you end up doing different things. So instead of having less engineers, you keep all the engineers, but you have them doing 100 times more things because the resource becomes cheaper, whether that's directly by devaluing what an engineer costs, or the work that they do costs less. So yeah, some really interesting questions raised by all. I don't want to repeat everything, but
my question for that is, does that lead to lost knowledge? So we talked about, are we just turning into glorified QAs or project managers? And that's because we've had to go through the ringer, we've had to learn the code, we've had to sit in front of the systems, watch it build, watch it fail, had to rebuild it when its patches run correctly. And so who's going to teach the next wave of people how to do that when they're just into ChatGPT and going, write me a function that does this? Who's going to teach the next wave of coders? Is it going to be ChatGPT? And if that is the case, does that then mean that the computers might be able to train themselves? They might be able to train themselves to redevelop the next level of trainer? And will they then start to go a bit faster, perhaps?
question.
I think the question is Toli.
Just a quick answer to that. So I'm interested in whether you can use LLMs to learn good practice. So whether you can ask questions like, how do you do event-driven architectures? What's the latest way to do that? And I've tried that a bit, and it's not great, but you can see a world where it's really useful to actually, rather than having an official training program, you have these tools that help you learn. But then to your point about who's going to teach people to do these things, well, we're going up the stack, right? We're going from servers everywhere to cloud to serverless, so we're abstracting things. I don't think we know how to program in punch cards anymore. We don't need to. We need to write functions, and that's it. So it's just going to go up the stack. I think the thing I disagree with is everyone saying that, oh, the stack's finished, we're done, like the LLMs will do everything, and we'll lose knowledge. The biggest thing I'd say is that we need to do what we always did, which is be critical thinkers and understand the systems.
Sure.
That's probably not going away, I think.
Sure.
I want to say that people are using already, how can we call them now? It's like collectively ChatGPT type of tools in teaching. So, for example, the furor about students, university students writing essays. Well, not writing essays, but submitting essays that ChatGPT wrote. I know that there are universities right now in the US and in Canada that have incorporated as part of the curriculum, and they say, okay, have ChatGPT generate, I don't know, an essay on Wordsworth or something, or Lord Byron, and then critique it, and examine all the arguments and write why an argument is correct or not. So the thing with software, well, with programming, where you can ask ChatGPT to create a function and then how it could be improved or made more efficient, or made more efficient, or do it in a different programming language. So you could use it to learn bits that you then hopefully put together yourself with the mindset of the architect. And that's why I also think that the job of the software architect won't go away, let alone any type of designer, service designer, and the managers. But actual software development, I guess, that job will largely go away because I guess most people will be reviewing and validating the automatically generated bits of code. But then there is the other problem that I mentioned before about not sending your data off to somewhere. The largest companies in the world already banned Copilot type of, let alone ChatGPT, used on company computers, and also checking code, because usually the code belongs to the client and you're not allowed anyway. So you wouldn't really be able to create something for your job and then have one of the co-pilots check its validity. And I mean, unless there is a way to somehow, with prompt engineering, and perhaps first of all only put individual bits and then change some stuff so that it's not exactly the same, because there is already demand for using these tools to check for plagiarism. And if something is out there, then you must have stolen it, and therefore the client will not pay for it. So there's also that aspect. I'll stop now.
I think all I can really do is summarise what the panellists have said. And the general feeling is software development going to disappear today? No. Anyone that's had a play with even GPT-4 will know you give it a complex programming task and it not going to solve it perfectly. The key use of the tool from a programming aspect, I've found at least, is when transferring across different languages, remembering syntax, etc. And that's a really useful productivity tool to bring into the toolkit of a developer. Will there be developers in the future? I don't know, but I really like, to your point, that we'll become all QAs.